What if the universe wasn't ignoring you, just waiting for you to remember how to actually talk to it? Imagine your life as a mirror, but this mirror doesn't reflect your thoughts. It reflects something more subtle, more ancient, something you might have forgotten. It's not your words, nor your mental desires that shape the field around you. It's your silent vibration, what you feel before you think, what your body emanates, even when your mouth smiles. You've done everything right, meditated, written affirmations, visualized, but deep down, something still feels off. Maybe what's out of alignment isn't what you think, but from where you think. Have you been living as an observer, disconnected from your own vibration, trying to command the universe with words, but sending out a frequency of scarcity, fear, or exhaustion? This video is a portal, a pause between thoughts, a reminder that the field doesn't read your intentions, it reads your coherence. Breathe. Because today perhaps you won't understand anything new. You'll just remember who you were before the effort. Perhaps you are exhausted, not from lack of faith, but from excess tension. You wake up, try to be grateful, put on some soft music, take a deep breath, but something inside your chest still vibrates with alertness. Your heart beats rapidly, your stomach tightens, and as much as you wish you were well, your body still feels like it's at war. It's subtle, but it's constant. An invisible effort to control thoughts, maintain good intentions, and avoid negative emotions. As if your mind has become a battlefield disguised as positivity. But the quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you want. And what you are is what vibrates in your body even before the thought is born. Joe Dispenza reminds us that the conscious mind may know a lot, but it's the body that stores the old programs. The body is the unconscious mind, and if it still vibrates with fear, pain, or scarcity, no mental affirmation can cut through that noise. Thinking positively on a soil of tension is like planting flowers on ground cracked by drought. At this point, you might be realizing your biggest trap isn't negative thinking. It's your body silently contracting and trying to manifest lightness. But what if the first step isn't thinking differently, but feeling differently? What if, before changing your reality, you needed to change the vibrational state from which you observe that reality? Maybe the key is not more strength, but more surrender. There's a well-hidden illusion in the world of modern spirituality. The idea that simply focusing on what you want will make the universe deliver. That simply focusing on a goal and keeping it there, like a laser beam, will mold reality accordingly. But the quantum field isn't an ordering system. It's a living mirror, sensitive not only to focus, but to the vibration from which that focus originates. You may be looking at abundance, but if your gaze is drenched in fear, it is fear that the field will amplify. This is the subtlety that many don't see. It is not what you observe that creates reality. It is the state of the observer that collapses possibilities. The observer effect, as quantum physics shows us, describes how the simple act of observation alters the behavior of particles. But what almost no one talks about is that this effect doesn't happen in an emotional vacuum. It happens within a living electromagnetic field, which you emanate all the time, even without realizing it. Your attention is creative, but your vibration is the mold. You may be asking for peace of mind, but if your body is still programmed for scarcity, for hypervigilance, for a deep distrust of life, then that's what you're really transmitting. Your attention is fragmented between what you desire and what you vibrate. It's like trying to tune into a healing frequency with a radio that's still stuck in the noise of an old station. The question that few ask themselves is, where does my attention come from? Where does it come from within? If she starts in a hurry, she carries anxiety. If she shares the blame, she carries self-punishment. If it starts from scarcity, it carries fear of not receiving. And the universe doesn't respond to the content of your intention, but to the emotional tone behind it. Greg Braden calls this coherence, the state in which the heart, brain, and body vibrate in unison, sending a clear signal to the field. When this alignment exists, effort is effortless, because what you feel is already congruent with what you desire. But when there is misalignment, the field senses confusion and responds with silence. And this silence hurts, because it's interpreted as rejection, spiritual failure, or worse, as an internal defect. And you begin to believe that something inside you is broken, that you're incapable of expressing yourself, that you're doing something wrong. But the truth is different. You are not broken. You are fragmented. Fragmented between knowing and feeling, between wanting and trusting, between focusing and surrendering. This fragmentation generates an observer who tries to create coherent realities from an incoherent internal field. It's as if every part of you is looking in a different direction, your mind toward the future, your body stuck in the past, and your soul trying to whisper in the present. But there is a possible cure. Gather the observer. Return to center. Breathe until your mind calms, your body slows down, and your soul can be heard. Because when the observer becomes whole, reality no longer needs to be forced. It begins to rearrange itself. And herein lies the great quantum secret that almost no one teaches. The universe does not respond to fragmented attention. It responds to unified presence. So, before looking outward, consider where your attention originates. What is your vibrational origin point? Are you desiring the new from the old? Are you visualizing abundance with a heart still constricted by fear? Remember, external reality can only collapse into coherence when the inner observer vibrates in truth. And this truth is not a concept. It is a feeling, a return, a silent surrender to the present moment. Maybe you don't need to focus harder. Maybe you just need to come back in one piece. For a long time, we've been taught that everything begins with thought, that what we think manifests, that the mind is the creator of reality, that everything originates in cognitive consciousness. But there is a deeper truth, one that, when ignored, creates silent spiritual frustration in thousands of conscious seekers. Thought is not the origin, it is the reflection, the echo of something older, the vibrational state of the body. You don't think differently to feel differently. You need to feel different to be able to think of something new. Bruce Lipton was one of the first to demonstrate this with biological clarity. His studies in epigenetics revealed that the body's chemical environment influences how genes are expressed. And this environment is not created by the rational mind, but by emotions, traumas, and perceptions recorded in the nervous system throughout life. In other words, your body isn't just carrying you. It's transmitting, encoding, and shaping your reality field. And if your body is in a state of defense, contraction, or survival, your thoughts, even positive ones, will be born from a distorted frequency. They will be echoes of vibrational scarcity, not seeds of abundance. Joe Dispenza also warns us, the body is the unconscious mind. It's where automatic patterns, emotional addictions, and silent loops reside that keep creating the same repetitive reality even when the mind desires the opposite. You can repeat, "I am prosperous" 1,000 times, but if your body is tense, accelerated, on alert, that phrase will just be noise in the field, a dissonant echo. The quantum field, after all, doesn't respond to words. It responds to vibrational coherence. Imagine a musical instrument. You can play the right notes, but if the instrument is out of tune, the melody doesn't come through clearly. This is what happens when the mind tries to control reality without the body being in tune with it. This is why so many people, even highly conscious people, remain stuck in old patterns, because they are trying to reprogram their minds without including their bodies in the conversation. But the good news is that the body knows the way back. By accessing physiological states of safety, like those activated by deep breathing, mindful touch, and welcoming silence, you alter the chemical terrain where thoughts are born. And when the body changes, the mind changes on its own. This is true quantum reprogramming, not the kind that forces the mind to think differently, but the kind that transforms the internal vibrational state until thoughts become natural reflections of a new frequency. Because deep down, thought is just the last layer of creation. Before that comes the feeling. Before feeling, vibrating. And before vibrating, the choice to allow yourself something new. You may be asking yourself now, if thought doesn't create, what does? The answer is simple and profound. What creates it is the coherent field between your body, your heart, and your consciousness. It's when there's no noise between what you think, feel, and emanate. It's when your being is whole. The mind, in this state, no longer needs to command. It becomes a clear channel, a finely tuned instrument, a clear reflection of inner truth. And that's when reality starts to bend. Not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. Before words, there was breath. Before the first thought, a breath. A silent movement that announced your existence, not with noise, but with presence. And that's why, at the heart of quantum creation, it's not what you say that transforms reality. It's what you emanate with the breath that sustains every second of your existence. You can think about the future. You can wish for a new life. You can even visualize it with all your senses. But as long as your body is stuck in the breathing pattern of scarcity, shallow, rapid, anxious, the field will continue to read a misaligned vibration. The truth is simple and almost always ignored. The universe doesn't read words. It reads your breath. She is the first sign. The first wave collapsed, the bridge between the invisible and the biological. Joe Dispenza talks about this in his transformational meditations. When you breathe with intention, you begin to change your body's chemistry. And by changing your chemistry, you change the electromagnetic signal you emit into the field. With each deep breath, you send a new command to the universe, not of control, but of presence. With each conscious exhalation, you silence the internal war between wanting and resisting. The HeartMath Institute has also proven that rhythmic breathing, aligned with the heart, is capable of generating coherence between the brain and the cardiac electromagnetic field, creating a state of internal harmony that literally alters perceived reality. This is not a metaphor. It's physics, it's biology, it's spirituality incarnate. What you vibrate while breathing is what you manifest. And yet, how many times a day do you breathe in fear, in a rush, with your chest tight and your jaw tense? How many times do you hold your breath as if waiting for something to go wrong? Without realizing it, your body is constantly transmitting warning signals to the field. Signals that say, it's not safe, I'm still fighting, I need to control it. And the field responds with more of the same frequency. But when you start breathing like someone who trusts, something changes. Not outside, but inside. Breathing is the only physiological function that occurs both automatically and consciously. This means it's the perfect gateway between the unconscious and awakening. By taking control of your breathing, you take control of your vibration. Breathing with presence is declaring, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm safe. And that's the first step to creating a new reality, being safe enough to receive it. The mind alone cannot offer this, but the body knows. He knows that deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reduces cortisol production, and increases heart rate variability. He knows that each conscious breathing cycle rebuilds the bridge to his soul. The question that remains is not, what should I think to manifest? But yes, how do I breathe while manifesting? Do you breathe like someone expecting to be disappointed, or like someone who's already receiving it? Do you breathe like someone at war with time, or like someone who trusts the rhythm of life? In the quantum realm, breathing is a silent but absolute command. It tells the universe, I am ready, I am coherent, I am aligned. And when the field feels this coherence, it reorganizes itself. So before you write down more goals, before you force more visualizations, come back to your center. Breathe as if you're remembering, because sometimes what's missing isn't more strength. It's just more air. Have you ever noticed how you try to keep everything under control? Not just commitments, schedules, goals, but also feelings, thoughts, symptoms, signs from the universe. As if you could just organize everything around you, including within yourself, peace would finally arrive. But what almost no one tells you is that the compulsion to control isn't born from a genuine desire for order. It's born from a nervous system in a state of constant threat. You may know theoretically that you're safe, that the universe is abundant, that everything is in flux. But if your nervous system is still vibrating in survival mode, this information doesn't translate into experience. And herein lies the great vibrational dissonance that blocks quantum creation. You try to order the universe with a body that still lives in chaos. Your nervous system doesn't understand rational language. It isn't soothed by affirmations. It only responds to sensation, to the subtle tone of what you're experiencing in the moment. If your body senses danger, no matter how many phrases you say about gratitude, the predominant vibration remains defense. And the problem with this is that when you're in a state of defense, everything you desire becomes a project of control. You don't dream of expansion, you run from pain. You don't desire the new, you want to escape the old. You don't manifest in freedom, you negotiate in tension. Creation becomes compensation. Spirituality becomes self-demand. And trust becomes a mask that hides the anxiety of not losing what hasn't even arrived yet. This isn't your fault. It's a deeply human mechanism. Our nervous system is shaped by experience. And if your experiences have taught you that the world is unsafe, that love requires effort, that worthiness is conditional, then your body has learned to protect itself, to anticipate, to contract. And every internal contraction prevents the vibrational expansion necessary to co-create a new reality. What few understand is that the universe is not organized by mental command. It is organized by vibrational coherence, and there is no possible coherence in a body chronically on alert. Joe Dispenza speaks clearly about this. The state of the nervous system determines the state of consciousness, and the state of consciousness defines what you perceive as reality. In other words, the external world that you try to organize with effort is already being shaped from within by your body every second. And if your nervous system is dysregulated, your focus will always gravitate toward fear, control, and defense, even if your words say otherwise. Therefore, true surrender doesn't begin with thought. It begins with the body feeling safe enough to let go. There's no point in telling the universe, "I trust," if your body is still tense as if something is going to go wrong. There's no point in visualizing abundance if your breathing is still shallow, your jaw tense, your chest on alert. The universe does not respond to your attempt. It responds to your state. And the state doesn't change with more effort. It changes with more presence. Presence allows the nervous system to slow down. Internal urgency dissolves. The body moves from vigilance to flow. And it is in this flow, and only in this flow, that control can truly be released. Letting go isn't giving up. It's trusting without tension. It's allowed without a contract. It's breathing without bargaining. Because when the body organizes itself in peace, the universe reorganizes itself in response. You don't have to control everything. You just need to allow your inner field to be safe enough to receive what's already coming. And it starts with a simple question: does my body feel safe to trust? If the answer is no, there's nothing wrong with you. There's just still a part that needs to be embraced before it can be released. Most of your life happens in between, in the space between one breath and the next, between one idea and the next, between what you were and what you are becoming. But we rarely honor that space. We live rushing from one answer to another, from one intention to another, from one technique to another. And in this constant movement, we lose the most sacred point of creation, the pause. Yes, the pause. That seemingly empty space where nothing happens, but everything reorganizes itself. In quantum language, it is in suspension, in the interval between observation and collapse. That reality adjusts. Infinite possibilities float, awaiting the observer's coherence. And this observer, you already know, is not your mind. It is your field. Joe Dispenza shows us that it is during mental pauses that the brain enters slower waves, alpha, then theta, states in which neuroplasticity is activated, allowing new connections to emerge, old patterns to dissolve, and the body to register, for the first time, a new vibration as real. The silence between thoughts is fertile soil where new realities can be sown. But why is it so hard to stay in it? Because silence is scary. It reveals what the noise hides, the discomfort, the lack of control, the unresolved layers we prefer to bury under stimuli and distractions. Pausing is encountering everything we avoid feeling, and paradoxically, it is this encounter that heals. In the pause, you cease to be the character in the quest. You return to your point of origin, to your essential state before the mind, before the trauma, before the name. That's where the field begins to read its true frequency. No interference, no trying, no noise. Greg Braden reminds us that it is in the coherence between the heart and the brain that the field responds clearly. But this coherence only occurs when there is space, when the system is not overloaded with stimuli, thoughts, and control. The pause is that space. It's like the silence between notes that transforms a sequence of sounds into music. It's like the night that regenerates the day, like the deep breath that precedes creation. You don't need to do more, you need to allow more space between doing. And this isn't taught with formulas, it's felt with dedication. Imagine now that each time you pause, deeply, consciously, a new reality begins to align. Not because you asked for it, but because you finally stopped resisting. Silence is a portal, but it doesn't open with effort. It opens with presence. And maybe that's why, deep down, everything you're looking for is already waiting for you within the pause you haven't yet given yourself. It's not about being silent, it's about becoming silent. That inner space where nothing is missing, nothing is left over, and everything pulses in perfect harmony. The quantum pause is not the end of the road. It is the return to the point from which everything begins. And in the vibrational birth of your new reality, there is no noise. There is a fertile void, a womb of possibilities. Do you allow yourself to stay there? Even if for a few seconds, even if in discomfort, stay, breathe, let go. Because sometimes what transforms the most is what makes no noise at all. You grew up believing that if you changed your thoughts, you would change your life. That it would be enough to think positively, repeat mantras, cultivate new beliefs, for external reality to transform into a response. But what almost no one has told you, and perhaps you have already felt, is that there is a chasm between thinking differently and living differently. Because while your mind says, "I am free," your body may be vibrating with the memory of prison. While your mind affirms, "I am enough," your chest still carries the tension of never having been truly seen. While your mind desires the new, your system is still reacting to the old. And this is where we begin to remember a forgotten truth. Reality doesn't respond to what you think. It responds to what your body transmits. Bruce Lipton, through epigenetics, shows us that the body stores invisible records, not just genes or traumas, but conditioned vibrational patterns that shape how the world is interpreted and consequently created. Joe Dispenza confirms, the mind may desire a quantum leap, but it is the body repeating the past that defines where your energy is actually going. You can even imagine new possibilities, but if your body still vibrates with fear, contraction, or vigilance, those possibilities remain inaccessible. Not because they don't exist, but because you haven't yet become compatible with them. The body in this context is much more than flesh. It is an antenna. It is a mirror. It is a transmitter. And as long as you keep trying to improve your mind without including your body in the equation, you're just repainting old programming. It takes more than new thoughts. You need a body that feels safe to experience them. And this kind of security isn't intellectual. It's not learned from books, nor is it achieved with techniques. It emerges slowly, like a flower that only blooms when the soil is nourished. You start to notice this reprogramming when something silently changes. When your body stops preparing for the worst, even for no apparent reason. When the constant tension you didn't even notice begins to dissolve between sighs. When the world seems the same, but within you there's a new way of listening, a different rhythm, a kind of presence that requires no explanation. It is at this point that manifestation ceases to be effort and begins to be coherence. You're no longer trying to create the future, you're becoming compatible with it, and from then on the field no longer needs orders. It responds to your vibration like water molds itself to the contours of the cup. This is true reprogramming, not an exchange of thoughts, but a silent transmutation of the state of being, from the brain that tries to control to the body that begins to trust, from incessant thinking to authentic feeling, from doing to proving to being that is enough. And then without realizing it, your reality changes, not because you forced it, but because you became the space where it can finally happen. Have you ever found yourself trying to organize your spiritual expansion as if it were a productivity project? A goal spreadsheet, a notebook of affirmations, a flawless meditation routine, a perfect sequence of elevated habits that, on paper, should change everything. But even with all this, there is still a pain that doesn't go away, a quiet sense that something is being done right, and yet something remains missing. The body doesn't relax, the heart doesn't open, energy doesn't flow, and the soul, wise, patient, lovingly steadfast, begins to whisper, "I don't want a method, I want you." Yes, The soul does not want to be conquered. It wants to be inhabited. But the modern world has trained us for the opposite. It has taught us to think of spirituality as just another area to be managed, monitored, and optimized, as if the sacred could be filled with lists, as if connection could be controlled, as if freedom could be earned through energetic performance. And so, little by little, the way back home becomes another place of exhaustion. You wake up and think, am I vibrating right today? You feel bad, and you start looking for what you need to fix within yourself. If something doesn't happen, conclude that something in the formula failed. And in this invisible cycle of spiritual pressure, you move away from exactly what you were most looking for: lightness, communion, rest in the now. Because no matter how advanced your practices are, if they are born from a place of fear or inadequacy, the field will continue to reflect disconnection. It's like trying to light a candle with internal wind. The intention is noble, but the ground is not yet ready. This is the subtle trap of a mentalized spirituality. It promises you control over reality, when in fact what the soul wants is a relationship with the mystery. Viktor Frankl said, "That which is essential cannot be sought, it can only be received." And the soul knows this. That's why it doesn't open itself to effort. It opens itself to listening, to space, to silence where nothing needs to be understood, only felt. But this silence hurts for those who have learned to measure everything with the yardstick of performance. So you keep trying. You correct vibrations, you adjust emotions, you align chakras, you redo your birth chart, and yet you still feel like you haven't arrived. Maybe because I'm trying to get to a place that, in fact, you can only get to by stopping running. The soul wants you to let go of the reins, to step down from mentalism, to take off the shoes of logic and step, for the first time in a long time, onto the sacred ground of your own presence. Not to understand, not to fix, but to feel what is already here. And feeling hurts sometimes, because feeling is remembering. Remember that you spent years trying to be perfect to deserve love, that you used spirituality as armor, that you sought techniques to avoid having to face the void. But emptiness is not the end. It is the womb, and it is in him that the soul flourishes. It's in this space where you're not doing anything, but you're whole, where no technique works, but everything reveals itself, where presence becomes more powerful than any practice. The soul no longer wants tasks, it wants tenderness. She doesn't want any more instructions, she wants intimacy. He doesn't want you to get better, he wants you to stop running away. And maybe the first step toward that is allowing yourself a new kind of spirituality. Not the kind that teaches you how to do things right, but the kind that reminds you that even when you're messed up, you're still worthy of connection. Because sometimes what's missing isn't discipline, it's a vibrational rest. And rest only comes when you stop offering the soul what it never asked for: control. And start giving it what it always expected: you, naked, alive, present. You spent so much time trying to observe correctly, direct your attention, adjust your intention, focus on the right desire with the right emotion at the right time, as if the creation of reality were a precise equation, as if the universe were a reward system based on energetic merit. But there is a point in the journey where the observer's effort tires. It's tiring because you begin to realize that, even with careful observation, something still seems out of alignment, that the field responds, yes, but not in a linear fashion. And that, no matter how hard you try to control what you observe, you still can't from where observe. And then a silent truth begins to reveal itself. You're not here to observe reality. You're here to become the space where it rearranges itself. There is a vibrational difference between being the observer and being the portal. The observer still tries to influence the field. There is still an eye that desires, directs, and waits. There is, subtly, a sense of separation. Me here, reality out there. But when you become the portal, that separation disappears. You don't watch the field, you in the field. Your presence ceases to be a tool of manifestation and becomes the invisible mold within which everything happens. You no longer need to try to collapse possibilities. You become the living collapse. The point of coherence where chaos dissolves and the new reality simply reveals itself. Neville Goddard called this assuming the state of fulfilled desire, not as a mental theater, but as a deep dive into the being that already vibrates what it wants to manifest, without desiring, without asking, without controlling. Because in quantum mechanics, what creates is not desire, it's the state. And this state isn't a specific moment, it's a stable field, a coherent frequency that you sustain, not with force, but with surrender. You stop being the one who looks for signs and become the sign itself. You stop being the one who tries to visualize and start vibrating reality before it happens. And at that point, the universe has no choice. It responds with synchronicity, with paths opening effortlessly, with answers coming in silence, with encounters that weren't scheduled but that knew the way home, because you are no longer operating as a fragmented observer trying to shape the external. You have become the vortex of coherence that reorganizes the external through resonance. Physics already recognizes this principle. The coherence of a field attracts and synchronizes other particles around it, just as a coherent heart influences the beating of other nearby hearts, just as a single being in presence changes the vibration of an entire environment. You don't have to change the world. You just have to become the space where the world can change. And for that, more control isn't necessary, but more inner space, less expectation, more listening, less direction, more trust. The field doesn't respond to what you force, it responds to what you and when it is in a state of truth. And your truth is that you never needed to manifest anything. You were always the channel through which reality knew itself in form. So maybe the next step isn't to try to visualize what you want, but cultivate the silence where what wants you can finally find you. Sometimes life seems to have forgotten you. The signals go silent, the doors close, practices lose meaning, energy no longer obeys intention. And in this disconcerting silence, you ask yourself, has the universe forgotten about me? But maybe it's not the universe that has forgotten. Maybe it's you who, in the midst of effort, control, incessant doing, has forgotten yourself, forgotten to breathe with soul, to be with the body, to trust without a contract. Forgetting that you are not here to convince the field, but to remind yourself that you already are the field. Yes, you are the frequency that organizes, the pulse that manifests, the point of convergence between the invisible and the visible. And the way back to that isn't through more knowledge, it's through shorter distances. Distance between you and the present, between you and your own feelings, between you and the body that still waits to be fully inhabited. That's why breathing matters so much, because she is the last link between who you think you are and who you have always been. She doesn't need technique, she needs permission. Permission to be deep, gentle, present. Permission to take you back to where it all began. A breath, a silence, a vibration. By breathing consciously, you don't just calm your body. You rewrite your vibration. You realign your existence. You remind the universe, without a word, who you are. Because in quantum mechanics, there is no logical dialogue. There is energetic reading. And what the universe reads is the coherence of your being. So breathe like you remember. Not of what you want to have, but of what you already are. Not of what needs to be achieved, but of what already pulsates. Not of what you've lost, but of what still resides at the center of it all. Breathe as if saying to the field, I'm back. I came back to myself. I came back to my body. I came back to the now. And now there's nothing missing. The breath is the ritual. The body is the altar. The present moment is the temple. You are the priest and the sacred. And in this state of silent wholeness, the universe doesn't just respond. He bows. Because finally, he recognizes in you what he always hoped to find again, a being at peace with who he is. You have walked through ideas, metaphors, body memories, and vibrational portals. Maybe you felt relief. Maybe you encountered pain. Maybe you remembered something you didn't even know you'd forgotten. But most of all, maybe now, finally, I'm starting to feel it. Feeling that you're not here to control the universe. You're here to become the space where it reveals itself with ease. Feeling that the reality you desire doesn't need to be forced. It just needs a coherent field in which to flourish. Feeling that your body was never an obstacle. It was always the messenger. Feeling that the pause, the breath, the silence are not an absence of action. They are the most magnetic action there is. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what is. And when you are present, The universe organizes everything around you to reflect that state. So don't try to rush, don't try to understand everything, don't try to do it perfectly. Just stop, feel, breathe, and let the field acknowledge with reverence, now yes, you've come home. What if you stop trying to make it happen and start just letting everything remember you? Who would you be if your vibrations spoke louder than your thoughts?